Do you ever wonder what would happen if someone hacked into your favorite video game platform? Well, we don't have to wonder because it's actually happened. And it's not just any platform, Sony's PlayStation network. But how did it get hacked? How much damage was done? And why is this such a big deal? It's what we'll explain right now. The year is 2011. Online gaming is getting really popular, especially with the launch of Xbox Live and the PlayStation Network, or PSN. In early April, things are going well for Sony until they detect something suspicious happening on their systems. At first, they try to keep it under wraps, announcing that they're doing routine maintenance. But then on April 20th, it all goes down. On that day, Sony sends out an email to users notifying them that there's a problem with the network. They say they're looking into it and will be back up soon. But it doesn't happen soon. For gamers, that's bad news. After all, you're paying a monthly fee for this service. No one could have guessed what was really going on behind the scenes. For several days, the PlayStation Network was completely unavailable. On April 26th, Sony finally admitted that it wasn't just a routine outage, but a serious security breach. They said customer information had been stolen, but that credit card details hadn't. So everyone was safe, right? Wrong. Just a few months before this, Sony had hired some pretty heavy hitters to crack down on online piracy. Could this be their handiwork? Well, not if Anonymous is to be believed anyway. Well, it started with a SQL injection attack. That's where hackers exploit weaknesses in websites to get access to databases. Basically, the hackers sent malicious code through special characters inserted into search fields. This code then allowed them to view, change, or delete data within the database. They claimed they weren't responsible, saying that they attacked corporations, not regular folks. It must have been someone else. When Sony tried to block Anonymous's attacks, their firewalls ended up being overwhelmed. The attackers exploited software vulnerabilities to gain access to Sony's internal network. From there, they copied data off the servers. That's why they turned to a crisis communications firm for advice. It's called the Citric Company. This is what they do. They specialize in helping companies navigate PR nightmares like product recalls and environmental disasters. On May 4th, Sony admitted that 77 million user accounts had been affected. It included holding a press conference, establishing a website for updates, and setting up a call center. They also suggested Sony should offer compensation. After all, many users couldn't log in for over 3 weeks. They also said that names, addresses, birth dates, emails, usernames, and encrypted passwords had been compromised. And get this, even some credit card details. Users would get a free game, along with 1 month of free PlayStation Plus. They'd never experienced anything like this before, and had no idea how to respond. After all, hacking a console is very different from hacking a PC, so maybe Sony thought they were safe. Not so. Now, however, the company was fully aware of the threat posed by hackers. They rebuilt their entire network security system and hired a chief information security officer for the first time. Unfortunately for Sony, the damage had already been done. Even years later, articles were written about how it set the company back. If you don't invest in cybersecurity, you're only asking for trouble. Even if you're the size of Sony, a company worth billions of dollars, you're not immune. Before this position existed, security issues were delegated to various departments. This created gaps in their defense that the hackers exploited. Plus, U.S. customers would get free identity theft protection. They were also given a 50% discount on any paid PlayStation Network subscriptions for 3 months. They also hired outside experts to conduct an investigation. These experts helped Sony find the holes in their security and plug them. Once everything was back online, Sony could get on with business as usual. Studies show that more than half of cyber attacks target large businesses. Small organizations are often overlooked simply because hackers don't think they have the resources to fight back. To make matters worse, there were more than 100,000 unencrypted credit card numbers floating around out there, meaning every single one of those could be used to buy stuff. Some users pointed out that the free games were low-quality titles. Others complained that they couldn't claim their free subscriptions. Otherwise, please let me know if you enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing for more cybersecurity content. Thanks for watching. In fact, some people had to wait almost a year to receive their discounts. The PlayStation Network was down for 23 days during this time. Customers couldn't use their consoles or play online games. This outage cost Sony more than $170 million, mostly in lost revenue. After all, this wasn't the company's first rodeo. After all, you'd expect a multi-billion-dollar company to be able to handle basic cybersecurity, right? Well, apparently not. Back in 2006, they'd suffered a similar attack. It wasn't as widespread, though, affecting only 10,000 Japanese users. Maybe it was anonymous after all. Or maybe it was some disgruntled former employee with a beef against the company. Over the next few weeks, users started getting spam emails that looked like they were from Sony. These emails tried to trick them into clicking links that could then infect their devices with malware. There was one in the United States, another in Europe, and even one in Japan. You might think a giant company like Sony would be able to handle something like this on their own. After all, they're a multi-billion-dollar business, but this wasn't the case. Others saw unauthorized charges on their credit cards, meaning the hackers had actually used their stolen information to buy stuff. Whoever did it got away with tons of information. It was the biggest data breach in history at the time. But who did it? Although no one claimed responsibility, the finger of blame pointed toward the infamous hacktivist group Anonymous. People questioned whether they could trust the company to protect their information. Also, multiple class action lawsuits were filed against Sony by angry customers. When Sony didn't listen, Anonymous declared war on the PlayStation Network. So how exactly did this happen? And Anonymous may have started it, but it was only when Sony tried to fight back that things really went south. We still don't know for sure who was behind this. But what does that mean? Turns out quite a lot, and it gets worse. In the aftermath, Sony's reputation took a huge hit. On top of that, government agencies launched investigations. Sony needed help both to fix the network and to communicate properly with the public. As part of their services, they drew up a list of recommendations for Sony. It took a while, but eventually Sony agreed to do these things. But it didn't end there, not by a long shot. They had to compensate users somehow. So on May 14, 2011, Sony announced a welcome back program. That's a lot of free stuff. But this welcome back plan came under scrutiny, too. But maybe Sony should have expected all this backlash. Still, it's worth asking how something like this could happen again. Back in 2011, Sony was caught off guard. But perhaps they were feeling a bit cocky. In the wake of the attack, Sony made some important changes. But this is nothing new. A lot of companies don't realize they need cybersecurity specialists until it's too late. Even though they fixed the holes in their system, they couldn't undo the damage to their reputation. News outlets ran story after story about the hack. There's a lesson here for anyone in charge of a large online platform. In fact, you might be an even bigger target. And this isn't just speculation. If you want to learn more about how Sony fixed their systems, check out the video in the description.